All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Ward Radio live stream. I am your host, Cardin Ellis. Today I'm joined in the studio by my lovely wife, Brittany the Shadow, and we are joined via Zoom by none other than Ben Kaiser. You guys may recognize him today. I've reposted him quite heavily on X. You guys can actually see him here. I'm going to put up on the screen. You might recognize many of his tweets and retweets that have been going through our feed today, as he is one of the closest people, unfortunately, to the active shooter scenario and now church burning in Michigan. Without any further ado, I just want to get Ben in here and have us talk about what we know about this situation, because you're the closest we have gotten to what's happening over there in Michigan. Our hearts break for these people, for our fellow members, for our fellow Christians, and obviously, without saying, our thoughts and our prayers and our greatest efforts to mourn with those that mourn as Christians go out to them. Ben, just tell us what we know so far. Like, just start from the beginning. What's your connection here to our members in our members in Michigan?
Sure, yeah. So I actually go and attend the Saginaw Ward, which is just north of Grand Blanc, and Grand Blanc's its own stake, and what occurred took place at their stake center. So it's actually the closest ward building to the Saginaw Ward that I attend. So I have family and friends that attend that ward, and the news quickly broke online, but also via calls and text messages from family and friends, asking if people were okay, asking if I knew anything. And that was actually right after our sacrament meeting, which took place at the same time. So right around the time everything was happening, people began reaching out to me.
Okay. And speaking of reaching out to you, I think we should be flattered. We should be grateful that you're here with us, because apparently you've been getting all these calls from CBS, from New York Post, from tell us what's going on.
I'm not really sure how they got all my information, but yeah, as steadily as some updates were coming in, it's actually why I stopped posting on X a little bit, because I wanted to just verify everything. But I started to get quite a few phone calls from investigative journalists and people that were just looking for more information, which I respect. And I was answering some calls, but I really wanted to verify a lot of the information that I was receiving, which I have, since I have quite a few friends, like I said, but one in particular is one of the first responders on the scene today.
Okay. And so just describe as best you can what's really going on over there. For those of you that actually, let me just put this on the screen. For those of you that are just tuning in, because I'm actually quite amazed at how many people that wake up early for church and just have meetings hadn't heard about this yet. But basically, the worst, the North American worst has happened to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I've always condemned our vulnerability in our chapels ad nauseum on this program, and warned that something like this would happen. And now finally it unfortunately has happened. There's been an active shooter that came into the chapel in Michigan, in a city called I want to pronounce this right. Grand Blanc, right?
Grand Blanc.
Grand Blanc. Okay. I wasn't sure. Like, in Southern California, you have to watch out what you pronounce with the Spanish and what you don't. Like, we all say La Jolla, which is technically the correct pronunciation, but then like we all say Soledad Canyon Road, and we don't say Soledad, right? So in Grand Blanc, Michigan, an active shooter basically loaded up a truck with some improvised explosive devices and accelerant, drove into the side of a chapel, and ended up opening fire on a bunch of active churchgoers. It's the worst of the worst that could be experienced in a house of worship on a Sunday, and unfortunately this house of worship was our own. It looks like there was confirmed 8 casualties. Casualty is a very broad word. We've only been able to confirm now, if I'm not mistaken, 2 deaths. Correct. However, we assume that there will be many others as they discover who was unfortunately burnt in the building, unable to escape. We suspect that number will only rise. And yes, it does include, unfortunately, children, primary age children.
Well, there's several too in the hospital with gunshot wounds.
Yes. Now, we've been able to confirm that of those 10 total, yes, 2 have deceased, but it seems like everybody else involved is in critical condition. From what I've gleaned, it seems like a member of the bishopric actually was a retired police officer or an off-duty police officer who engaged the shooter directly, that a secondary person is a member of the ward that had his CCW also assisted and engaged the shooter directly, and that ultimately that led to his demise. But the building was indeed set ablaze. We can put this up on the screen right here, and within a function of minutes seemed to have completely burnt to the ground. So, yes, tell us more. I'm not the expert here. You are. I've been following this all day, and I'll definitely fill in gaps narratively where we have to catch people up that are unaware of what's going on. But what have you been able to hear from people you know that are on the ground, Ben?
Yeah, so initially there was some rumors about the IED situation. I wanted to touch on that quickly, and there was a lot of conjecture online. Was the truck that was in the side of the building, was that from a different event? We of course know that that was the actual event that occurred. So what initially happened was they checked the truck and they removed one or more IEDs or explosive devices from the truck. About 30 minutes later, as they're continuing to respond to the events at the scene, the truck starts beeping, and they had to evacuate all the first responders that were inside. And the bomb squad had to recheck the truck. They had already removed some devices. They had to go back in and relook at it. Now, you had mentioned when we were talking before, they're now at his home, but this was definitely something that wasn't, I got to be careful how I say this. Some of the other events that you read about over the years, a bit impetuous. They go in, not a huge game plan. This is almost echoes Columbine in terms of the mass amounts of destruction this person seemingly had planned. But further, he's saying that there's estimates, and I don't want to speak out of turn here, but they're guessing about 20, 30 people that are still in the building under the rubble. He says he's going to try to give me an update when he has a bit more on it. But at this time, we're hoping it's as small of a number as humanly possible. And of course, we know that you're not able to technically carry, but I'm certainly grateful that there were people there not only armed, but were willing to engage with the shooter. And the last thing I'll say is he told me that the shooter was down outside the building when he was shot. And I asked him how exactly the timeline he was getting from his superiors and his chief, how that worked out. And he said that everything that's been reporting to him is that he actually was in the process of dumping gasoline throughout the building while he was engaging in gunfire, which I think were at the time some of the members of the bishopric and then later the police. So while he's engaging in gunfight, he's pouring gasoline and set it on fire. I thought it was a before or after. He said it was during.
Wow.
Yeah. So anyway, just to catch up our audience here really quickly, I'm just going to read the pertinent sections right here from the latest New York Post article that's going up. It seems to be one of the more concise summaries of all the information that we've had. A deranged gunman who killed at least 2 people and wounded 8 others in a Michigan Latter-day Saint church before setting it ablaze is a 40-year-old Iraq veteran who served in the U.S. Marines. The Post can confirm. We want to undo a lot of false reporting that was done before. Oftentimes it's an internet joke to post Sam Hyde's picture. It has been for a decade whenever there's some kind of mass shooting or some kind of tragic event saying, hey, we have a picture of Sam Hyde. Unfortunately, as perpetually online as I am, I didn't realize that Marcus Hale is also an internet meme, and that name circulated for a while. We had even reposted a news story that had embedded into a stock photo the name Marcus Hale on my X account, and I was unable to go into that metadata and change it, so I actually ended up having to delete that post myself as well. And then there was also about an hour-long period where the name of Robert Joseph Smith was flying around, or Robert James Smith was flying around, and apparently even Grok, the internet AI robot that you can ask any questions to, unfortunately and incorrectly identified Robert James Smith, the lead singer of The Cure, as the shooter as well. So apparently people believe that for half an hour as well. But anyway, at this point now, apparently we can't confirm that indeed Thomas Jacob Sanford ran his Chevy Silverado truck into the building before opening fire on worshipers at a Sunday service of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And he also set the church ablaze, causing the entire structure to burn down. Authorities fear there may be more victims in the fire. You're saying that your immediate contacts that are first responders, Ben, suspect it's as many as 20 to 30 people?
Yes.
And they were just unable to escape, and it was burning too quickly.
Yes. And also, I know the press conference that took place earlier, they said Genesee County is trained to attack immediate threats, to engage immediate threats. I know there was some conjecture online about what's the protocol for this. The problem wasn't the fire. The problem was the threat of the IEDs. And obviously the shooter was engaged first, and that was somewhat quick. But at the same time, they had to evacuate when the IEDs were found. And he's also saying that they've been rigorously searching the rest of the church grounds. They don't know exactly, was he there the night before? And by the way, this is a side note, there have been several threats to the Flint Ward building. It was broken into last month and trashed. So Flint was evacuated right around the time, family by police escort, right after their primary program. And that was one of the tweets that one of the posts on X. And then, of course, we were on lockdown. We locked all the doors. We didn't know. So right now, in addition to his home, they're searching the church grounds as well.
Jeez.
Yeah, what I didn't know, so he drove his truck through the wall. That was the chapel, right?
Yes, through this, supposedly the front door.
So he must have known where the chapel was, what time the congregation was meeting, because that's where the most people would be congregated, would be in that area. So it makes me think, like, yeah, did he visit the church before? Did he know someone in that congregation? Like, why, out of all the walls in the church building, why would he know that wall leads to the chapel? That's where they are right now.
It precludes the idea of this being, it not excludes, what's the word? It rules out the idea that this is some passion crime. This was obviously premeditated. There was obviously some kind of animus. Whether it is ideological, political, religious, we don't know yet. We want to be responsible in our reporting on that and our conjecture on that. However, by his actions, we can completely rule out that this is something he just got angry about and thought about that morning.
Yeah, shooting while pouring gasoline, like...
Yes, and this is a military trained individual. I hate to say it, but we trained him to be as effective at his job for a while. Doing the most amount of harm in as short as... Yes.
Yeah,
so this is absolutely brutal. And obviously in this show, we completely eschew trafficking in human misery and so on and so forth. But I do take heart that there's a lot of bishops out there that are reconsidering some of these prohibitions on concealed carry people in the church being able to carry their legally trained and licensed firearms, because from what you were able to also confirm, that's basically who was able to stop this guy. Am I correct?
Not certain on that. I know that they engaged with him, but him being shot in a parking lot and law enforcement is saying it's them. I'm not 100% certain who was ultimately the perpetrator, whether they drove him, took care of that, whether they drove him out or what it is. I know for a fact, though, that there were members of the church that did engage him in gunfire.
Okay. Have you been able to speak to any of those members, or do you just know from people that you implicitly trust?
No. And I spoke with a member of my family, and I don't want to give out any names, but he kept telling me the first counselor, but what's circling on X is the second, which I guess it doesn't really matter. It matters to the people that know him, but 100% certain they did engage with the shooter.
Okay. Interesting. So anyway, we're going to go back to the article right here, finish reading this for those that need to catch up. He set the church ablaze, causing the entire structure to burn down. Authorities fear that there may be more victims in the fire. Yes, we've been able to confirm that. A Facebook post by Sanford's mother said the gunman, who died at the scene in a shootout with cops who served in Iraq from 2004 to 2008. He was killed minutes after the first 911 call came in. A Department of Natural Resources officer and a local township cop responded to the scene in about 30 seconds, authorities said. So we're assuming that those were the members of the church, reasonably, correct?
I was wondering that too, and I asked him about that, but he was a little tight-lipped about it because he wasn't certain who was at the time deceased. So, but yeah,
Okay.
that's
So it's a reason we can reasonably surmise it, but we can't peg it, so we're not going to say whether it's fact or fiction. Either way, authorities later confirmed that Sanford from nearby Burton, Michigan, was the lone suspect. The source of the blaze was not immediately known, but sources told the Post authorities found several improvised explosive devices on church property, which a bomb squad was investigating. Now we have also gotten pictures of that bomb squad. I'm going to make sure that I put them up here on the screen. You can see that the tree blocks the image, but indeed they are all over this. It's unfortunate that the local hospital I heard a nursing strike was underway at the local hospital, and that there were nurses trying to flood in and help out anyway, but they were getting turned away. Is this just some kind of asinine clerical snafu, or is this some kind of ideological impetus behind it? What happened there?
I do. So my wife has a friend who works at the hospital, and that's exactly what happened. I'm not sure, exactly why. I know some people are really calling for, Ford Health to take a look at what happened today, but it's an absolute travesty. And Michigan's sort of notorious. I hear about it every year. One hospital or one healthcare system or another's having walkouts and this and that. But you'd think that you would want to. And in fact, they were turning patients away because of it, because they were understaffed. They only took 3. 2 were very mortally wounded, and the other, from my understanding, was already deceased. So they could only take 3 patients.
The hospital turned away patients?
That's what I was told by one of the workers there.
Isn't that like the oath? Like
the Hippocratic oath?
Yeah. Like we help everyone?
Jeez. Are you kidding me? Well, that's what you were told, and you're only repeating what you were told.
Well, and I heard, I can't remember what article I was reading with regards to the nurses on strike, something like the hospital couldn't let them in over like insurance issues.
So
that's
what I'm saying. It might be
bureaucratic red tape. They weren't allowed to help save people.
Some collective bargaining nonsense.
Crap.
Yeah. So anyway, we're just going to continue here with the article. The article continues. I want to make sure that I read this properly. Cops said that there were hundreds of worshipers inside the church when the attack began, with aerial footage showing an enormous plume of choking black smoke rising up from the structure as it burned. Social media accounts believed to be connected to Sanford. Social media accounts believed to be connected to Sanford show he's a family man with a wife and a young son. A dormant GoFundMe page from 2015 raised more than $3,000 for the couple's now 10-year-old son, who was born with congenital hyperinsulinism, or CHI, a rare condition. Pictures from his Facebook page show X, Y, or Z thing. But this was the thing that part of me was heartbroken that this is the way Mormons are. Part of me was very proud, but I've heard from multiple sources that when he crashed in the building, that the first thing people did was try to assist him.
Yeah.
Was to try and just run over there, say, what happened? Oh my gosh. And then he starts opening fire on people whose first impulse was to assist him, which I just think that goes beyond no good deed goes unpunished into just gut-wrenchingly repulsive, just make me angry evil. So churchgoers reportedly heard a loud bang as the attacker crashed his truck into the church. We at first thought someone had accidentally crashed into the church, so we went out to help him. The man told the local TV station. Paul Kirby, 38, who also ran outside to render assistance, believing it to be an accident, told the New York Times he saw the man getting out of the truck from about 10 to 20 yards away before he realized what was happening. He started shooting at me, Kirby said, saying a bullet whizzed through a nearby glass door, clipping his leg with a piece of shrapnel. He then rushed inside the church to find his wife and 2 sons before they fled through the back of the church and loaded as many people into their car as they could before speeding away. Grand Blanc resident Tony Deck told USA Today that he drove by the church after hearing sirens and saw at least 4 yellow canvases over dead bodies. So we're assuming that too is now quickly turning to 4. They just haven't gone through the official channels of identifying the body, notifying the first loved ones. But visual eyewitnesses say it's at least 4. Now, can you speak to what went down when he drove into the chapel? Have you spoken to anybody that says we began rendering him assistance? Like what's what you've heard?
The only thing that I've heard is that once several people exited the building because they were told to, when they looked back, they saw people fleeing out of windows and doors, everything that they could, because then the shots started ringing out. So it quickly divulged into chaos very, very quickly. From what I'm told, obviously, the majority of everyone in sacrament meeting in the chapel was again told to evacuate at that point. The problem is that he didn't, because I think there's some misconception online that he drove his truck into the building, exited the vehicle, and entered through the hole that he created with his vehicle. And from what I'm understanding, that's not the case. The case is that he drove into the building, hit the wall, he exited his vehicle, and then he went around. So you can see it on Google Maps or some of the photos. But I think to answer some of the questions as to how he knew where to hit, it's just sort of about accessibility. The beautiful front of the church where he drove into is right by the main road. Everything else, the classrooms and the windows, that's all accessible through the parking lot. So it's actually, if you had no clue and you wanted to drive your car into a building like that, that's probably where you would aim, just by accessibility and just vantage point. Anyway, so at that point, again, the issue with people evacuating is then that's when you start shooting, and then it kind of turns a little bit into chaos and people start fleeing because he then enters the building.
Yeah. So you've been to this church building yourself.
Yes.
I have a concern. I've always had a concern. In fact, last time we talked about our church building, one of the church buildings, sorry, there's 3 church buildings that we attend regularly, but one of the church buildings that I attend regularly for many stake functions actually is right next to a high school that had an active shooter scenario. And unfortunately, that was where all of the kids in the high school fled to after the active shooter scenario. So we're right next to one active shooter high school in one building. In the other building, when my wife's grandfather was stake president, there was a guy that came in with a shotgun to shoot up the chapel and so on and so forth. He starts unloading. Unfortunately, services weren't in service right then. So it was just property damage that was done. And thank God, right? And then we had the issue in Chatsworth. There's been problems all over. And last time we talked about this in church, it was the most awkward elders quorum, because nobody was allowed to say what they actually really wanted to say. And they said, okay, well, the church's policy is, not even run, hide, fight, just like run, and fighting is the last resort, and yada this and that. And I raised my hand, and I remember saying, is this really our plan? That all of the elders meet in the castle keep, in the last remnants of the cultural hall, the safest part? Because if you come through the eastern door, what's immediately to your right? Relief Society, all the women. If you come through the western door, what's immediately to your left? Oh, the primary, all of the children. So we're going to put all the able-bodied men that can actually fight back and do something to defend their people in the middle of the cultural hall, the furthest place you would have to get to last. I feel like the average Mormon chapel, with its culture of just anybody can come and go, there's no foyer like evangelicals, where they want to meet you, and granted, it's because they want to meet you and give you their books and get your phone number and all that other stuff, and make sure you get your donut holes and your coffees over there.
There's also no security. Mega churches have security.
Yeah, a lot of people criticize that kind of architecture in evangelical modern Protestant Christianity as being, more of a business model than a church. But at the end of the day, one of the beautiful fringe benefits of that business model is exactly who's coming and going, and security just got a lot easier. Whereas in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, we are freaking sitting ducks, and I've been screaming from the rooftops that we're sitting ducks. You've been to that chapel. Do you feel like, unfortunately, common with most Mormonism, it was a very soft target and very vulnerable, or I don't know how to ask this question other than saying, like, I think a lot of people right now are very quickly and hardly reassessing their church going experience, because you can't go to church in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and not see how a very bad actor could be highly advantaged and a very good actor would be highly disadvantaged in our church. Would you? Is this wrong? Where do I go wrong?
No, you don't go wrong. Listen, I grew up in a small branch. If anyone would walk in there at any given time, I mean, yes, it's a small meeting area, small chapel, and there are 4 exits, like most places. Now, the ward that I attend now, much larger. Those same 4 exits. Luckily, there's 2 doors that lead right outside. It's a bit more helpful, but we have the overflow open, so it sort of flows into the cultural hall. And I understand that you're not going to build your buildings all based on all the what ifs of life, but certainly there needs to be some sort of discussion on whether that's the concealed carry policy, whether that's security, or what exactly that's going to mean. I was sort of joking with my wife on the way home, thinking they're going to have security callings now. What exactly
finally
they have to. Something has to give, because I just kept thinking in my mind, we're in a pew. The primary program's going on. I have children on the stage. I have small child in my arms. If that were our building, I mean, just mayhem. There's no plan.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, just outlawing guns and saying, law enforcement officers only, in the handbooks of the neocons and the neoliberals.
Not every ward has law enforcement.
Yeah, just doing that so all the neocons and the neoliberals can feel comfortable and say, we did our thing. That just does not work anymore. Because, babe, you remember when we were in that ward that got dissolved because so many families moved out. There's a lot of wards where you feel real comfortable. I've been in wards where there's literally like 10 to 20 LAPD, LA Sheriff, FBI, ICE, and there was even an officer for like the cops on trains. Like apparently Amtrak has their own police force or something like that, So, I mean, we've got 12 dudes just locked and loaded, stay strapped, like no problems. Well, I was in a ward where there was 3 or 4 of them, and all 3 of them moved away during COVID. We didn't have a single one. Not a single one. Yet there's a bunch of CCW holders who would love to come and would love to do the informal security of the church. These people have been trained by the LA County sheriffs. They're 95 to 98% accurate with their firearms. They've been through 40 hours of classes, 50 hours of training. Some of these people are they fulfill, I swear, to get a CCW, you probably have more training than half of the police departments in the Midwest,
and
in Los Angeles.
Checks.
It's absolutely absurd. But they're disallowed because of a handbook regulation. And so when I hear this, I've been saying this on the show forever, that we can't normalize this. We have to fight anti-Mormonism where it happens. Anything that wants to dehumanize a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints for their sincerely held political beliefs, that needs to be absolutely challenged. It is not peacemaking to normalize that or allow that to go uncontested. But we can't have a situation, I say on the show all the time, that you need to subversively build the kingdom. We can't have our protection and our security be the same way. It can't be that somebody feels like they have to break the handbook rule in order to protect their family while going to church. And so I'm not going to get on a soapbox about this, but I think there's a lot of people here that are starting to see how this failed. So anyway, let's just go back to the article here. He started shooting me, Kirby said, saying a bullet whizzed by the nearby glass door, clipping his leg with a piece of shrapnel. He then rushed inside the church to find his wife and his sons. Then they fled. Grand Blanc resident. Oh, whoops. Sorry. Hold on. Area photos show a massive fire that started the attack, fully engulfing the house of worship in flames. Though the exact cause of the blaze remains under investigation, a source told the Post investigators found several improvised explosive devices at the time. 2 questions for you, Ben. When they say improvised explosive devices, are they just mislabeling cans of fuel as improvised explosive devices? Because it seems like he lit the building on fire by like he himself applying accelerants and then lighting it on fire, correct?
So yes, but my connect also made the distinction. 2 separate. So he had IEDs both in his truck and, for what he's telling me, possibly around the church ground, and he had gasoline on his person as he was engaging in gunfire. So this dude learned a thing or two about some of the historical failures for mass casualty events, it appears, and decided to take some precautions. Those IEDs did not explode. Whether that was because of the response of the bomb squad, the initial time, because again, 30 minutes after, they had to reevaluate the truck. They didn't move it at the time. They had left it there. They had the blaze to deal with. They were trying to get to survivors. Then all of a sudden, it's an evacuation event. Look at the truck, see if there's more IEDs hidden somewhere, or maybe the truck itself was rigged. But either way, it was separate. So he brought both gasoline and IEDs. Now, of course, IEDs is pretty broad. All it generally means, as you know, is just something that was rigged to explode. And I mean, you can go to a hardware store and get supplies that do that. So what exactly that means, I'm not sure. But from verbatim, what he said was the suspect was shooting and dumping gasoline at the same time. I can't tell you 100% if they found IEDs on the church grounds. They did say that they found several IEDs in his truck and near the church grounds. So just full disclosure, he's a firefighter. So he's getting his information a little bit secondhand from the local PD around the area, but that's verbatim what he updated me with.
Yeah. Okay. And now can you speak to the fire? If you dump a bunch of gasoline in a building, there's a lot that can go up in flames very, very quickly. And this building seemed to have burnt to the ground within less than an hour. Is that correct, would you say?
Yeah. So when I got told what was happening, I finally got in contact with my uncle. He lives within eyeshot of the building, and he said the flames were so high it was unbelievable. So I would venture to say, and I mean, thinking about my own chapel, the pews made of wood, the hymn books, like everything is just, again, this is not a criticism of how they built the buildings by any means, but I'm saying if you certainly wanted to burn that thing down, you could do it pretty quick. And then of course I heard that, and this was over the scanner that I was following, and it was verified later that responders were pulled out again because the roof was going to collapse. It then did. And then at that point, it was trying to figure out who, what, and when in terms of the layout of the building, where exactly they could enter. Was there a fear of collapse of the other wings of the building, or how exactly they were going to re-enter once that chapel cultural hall roof did collapse?
Oh gosh. And I don't even want to speculate, but I've been through way too many trainings for way too many different scenarios to not know that deaths in burning buildings come from really only 2 things. And that's
Asphyxiation.
Asphyxiation, lack of oxygen, which is horrible and gruesome. And I have to hold back tears thinking about it. And then structural collapse. If you are spared actually being burnt to death, but usually it's not the actual flames that kill you. Yes, the injuries from burn victims and so on and so forth, hours, days, weeks down the road, you can succumb to those injuries and everything. But to just think of people trapped in a house of worship that is supposed to be the most safe place on the planet that can't get out, my brain cannot fathom that. Were people, first responders were trying to go in there, but then it was declared unsafe, and then they were evacuated, correct?
Yeah.
And then they were allowed to go back in when, I want to make sure that I don't misreport something. What
I heard it was like a crew of 4 that were allowed to go back into the building.
how long though? Like,
I have the
how
scanner
long?
transcript. You mean like the timestamp?
Yeah, can you read that? And also, Ben, like, just repaint that scene. I mean, I would hate to feel like I was a first responder that knew there was people in there and I couldn't go and actively try and help.
So from what I'm understanding, the speculation on the people in the building, it's just coming from obviously the membership as they're interviewing it. And there's hundreds of people that attend that ward. So for those that made it out or sped away, then you got to get in contact with them. So you're trying to paint the picture of who's missing, who didn't get out. So right now it's just a speculation of who was still in the building when the roof collapsed or when they finally put out the blaze. Now they have to go back in there. But to really paint it as timeline wise, I'm sure eventually we're going to get it minute by minute. But right now, from what I understand, is once the shooter was down, the bomb squad showed up and immediately went to the truck. It was identified as his truck. They ran the plates very early on. They found out he must have had ID on him. And that's when they removed the IEDs. It was deemed safe, but only for 30 minutes. Once the IEDs, and I say IEDs plural, just because that's how the text read. I asked for the distinction. He couldn't clarify, but he said IEDs from the truck. Then it started ticking 30 minutes after the initial IEDs were removed from the truck. And that's when from what he told me, the entirety of the first responders were evacuated from the building.
Jeez.
And then I'm not sure how long it took for them to determine what was wrong with the truck, if anything, to allow that small group to go back in. And they could have allowed it while they were conducting that search. The building's pretty big. So unless the guy's got a ton of stuff, I would make that call too. Let's try to enter in some of these other areas a little bit away from that, just so we can continue with our active search and rescue while Bomb Squad is trying to determine whether that's still an active threat.
Yeah, this transcript, it says 11 a.m., all units pull out, roof is collapsing. And then 11:07, it says major collapse, live ammo now going off. 11:10, they were requesting more manpower to the scene. 11:12, requesting more units. And then 11:16, sending in a crew of 4 firefighters for a search. So it was about 16 minutes from when they were pulled out until 4 were authorized to go back in.
Okay. And now, being a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, aka Mormons, it's obviously a oftentimes very small community. I was able to get very consistent reporting from a lot of very similar sources as to how things went down. Here's one of them that I'm just gonna be able to put on the screen here. That gives me some heart here, at least in the sense that it seems like people really just spurred into action here. Family member sent this to account from someone they know, and I'd actually blocked out who the someone was. We jumped out the primary room window and watched the shooter and counselor in the gunfight. As he was running away, the shooter ran his car into the building and started shooting. Then the second counselor came off the stand and got the guy outside and engaged in gunfire, was shot and went down. And then the shooter threw. In this episode, I've heard people saying a hand grenade, but obviously to me that just seems like a colloquialism for something to ignite an accelerant. You know, what is this? Sorry, let me finish the text message. It says, and went down. The shooter threw, I don't think it was an actual grenade, but was shooting people in the back. Another ward member got his gun and killed the shooter. It's very confusing, but at least we know who a second person engaged the shooter. So we're able to confirm that 2 people in the congregation were actually able to engage this guy. Now, do we know how he lit the fire?
I don't know.
No. Okay. So, geez, I'm still just in shock from this. And as we put on the screen the picture of the building, that all happened within just a handful of hours, because of an act of this man. But as I'm hearing more and more about the members here, it seems like they did a great job of just jumping into action, and I'm blown away. I'm in shock that it happened, but I'm also in awe of people that just seem to jump immediately into action. Speak on that. What was the response? How quick was it, and how has the local congregations been able to help?
Well, it's been immediate. And I think we all kind of run through that scenario. Every time you hear about something, you never think it's going to be you. But every time something goes down like that, whether it's a school or a church, you always think, what would I do? And it's a nice sentiment to think that everyone would, and that's not always the reality, but it's a lot more people than you think. There's a lot of courage, not only in this country, but for Christians and certainly within our membership. We have a pretty unique and distinct outlook of our mortality and our mortal tenure here that really allows us that courage. We have such tools at our disposal to really understand and be able to grip and come to terms with what exactly it's going to mean or be. But in that moment, it's not like you go through that. It's sort of, we've already made that decision through our membership. And again, I'm not saying by any means we're more brave than any other Christian sect, but it allows us certainly to have that brevity that you would need in situations like that. And so from what I'm hearing, one of the victims I knew was a very amazing man, and I wouldn't expect anything less from him. I wouldn't expect anything less from the members in my ward, had it been my ward or had it been in any other ward. I certainly, again, am one of those people that would like to think that I'd be the one that would jump up and do something. As it becomes a bit more of a reality, I certainly think that people, like Elder Maxwell once said and encouraged, is to settle it in your hearts now. What kind of disciple you're going to be. Don't look at it like Alma in chapter 14, where the Spirit will constrain you. Most of the time it won't.
Oh gosh, you knew somebody directly.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. I can only attempt to imagine. My first impulse is just to think, gosh, is there anything we could do? But we're just a dumpy show that's getting the word out.
Listen, don't worry about it. The first thing I asked my uncle was, what can we do? And we had all of the youth were in their classes, and I'm a preschool advisor, and they're just in there starting it, and all of the leaders are out. And the first thing is, what can we do? And as close as we were, what are we going to do? There's nothing that you can do. So all we did was kneel down and pray, and honestly hope for the best.
Yeah. Well, I take heart at the response of a lot of people. There were some very heartening responses that I saw coming out immediately, as there were some very disheartening ones. Fortunately, it seems like, just like after Charlie Kirk's assassination, the Time magazine article literally said enough. It seems like a lot of people are saying enough. Cenk Uygur comes out and says, we have another shooting, this time at a Mormon church. And it's, if it weren't so sad, it would be funny. But he literally says, who shoots Mormons? This is absolutely crazy. We have to stop shooting each other. And I think no political assassinations is good, solid bedrock for American society. And no shooting chapels or places of worship is another good, solid bedrock of American society that we should aspire to. We have a statement here from Glenn Beck saying, evil feels unleashed with bloodshed now, a daily sorrow we mourn with all those who mourn, yet I hold fast. Evil never wins. Christ will bring ultimate justice and reign in peace. May he find us worthy. May he save the republic. I think that's true. I found this one. I didn't know whether I did laugh at it because I thought it was funny, but I also think it's actually tragic simultaneously that the LDS Church was led by a former marketing executive during the Salt Lake Olympics. It was led by a physician during COVID. Our next prophet, check notes, is a constitutional law expert, gulp. I don't know what that foreshadows, but I do think that we all have sensed a change that has happened in the past week. And I think also some old biases seem to be going away, because something that I found resoundingly interesting is after the Civil War, it was the first time where people started calling themselves Americans. Instead of being the United States of America, I'm a Virginian, I'm a Vermonter, I'm a New Yorker, I'm a Floridian, or whatever. We started calling ourselves America. It took that horrible bloodshed to finally unite and to go through that together. I noticed that some people still have interdenominational beefs, but today it seems like anybody who's got any kind of responsibility or had to do anything big in their life just shed this idea that Mormons aren't Christian real hard and real fast. I found it interesting that Donald Trump, I reposted Matt Watkins. He says, I'm not a fan of President Church, but he got the name of the church right and correctly identified it as Christians. Hey, that's great. Charlie Kirk didn't hate on us. And apparently, Donald Trump literally was able to say, I've been briefed on the horrendous shooting that took place at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Grand Blanc, Michigan. The FBI was immediately on the scenes, yada, yada, this, that. Suspect is dead. But he did say another target attack on Christians in the United States of America. And fortunately, I was disheartened that, just like when Charlie Kirk was assassinated, there was a ton of people that, just could not simply say political assassinations, they should be off the table. They had to make sure they said, oh, though I disbelieved and everybody don't know what he stands for, and throw in a million qualifiers. There was a quick response from a lot of anti-Mormon, evangelicals and Protestants, saying, well, let's be clear, this was an attack on Mormonism, not an attack on Christianity. And, maybe if they were Bible believing, then we could call it an attack on Christianity. But
yeah, I saw one comment that said, well, God does work in mysterious ways.
Oh,
yeah. I was just like, demon.
No.
Instant demon.
Yeah, actually, I'll put it up on the screen. One of the ones that I thought was the most disgusting out there, and we don't want to give too much air to these people, but
or demons. I don't think they're people. I literally think they're demons.
We're not going to commit the exact same error as they do.
When you're saying that much hateful thing, you're a demon.
Yeah. Well, actually, I will put up on the screen because it did happen. I'll find it. There was a woman named Barb, for example. But James Lindsay says, I agree with so many others. Today is not the day to start fights over LDS beliefs or theology. Today is the day for us to recognize our fellow Americans and stand with them and for them against anyone who would do any such evil to us. I'm sad to see it happening at all. And I'm going to find, oh, here it is. Connor Boyack looks like he retweeted it for me. Yeah, this one blew my mind. Look at this. This was the first one that I happened to see that I responded to. But this Barb Schaefer character, that blew my mind. Just to be clear, it's a Mormon church, one that does not teach pure biblical Christianity. Here's Real Hockey 12. Mormonism, this was an assault on Mormonism, not Christianity. And then Rachel RMMC. However, the Latter-day Saints are not Christians. This
is
a problem.
But ...
Yes.
Or however ...
Yes.
They don't care. They don't care.
Exactly. This is a problem in American society. If you are like Jim Bennett said it so well. He said there was a time when he was helping his dad campaign that he realized there were so many members that put their republicanism first and then their membership in the church and their humanity second. I'm butchering that quote. But there's a problem on the left. If you can't look at the assassination of Charlie Kirk with anything other than repulsion and disgust and say this should not be. If you feel and you're so dedicated to your leftism that you have to virtue signal and qualify that statement, there's something wrong with you. And conversely on the right, because the right wing in America is basically Christianity. These labels haven't really changed since the French Revolution. There was the academics and the secularists and the philosophers on the left, and then on the right was the traditionalists and the clergy and those believed that in Christianity and the Christians in the Great Assembly Hall during the French Revolution, and that's where the term left and right came from. And to this day, left and right still basically points in those directions. Christianity over here, secularism over there, right? And on the left, if they can't look at Charlie Kirk and say anathema, there's something wrong with you. You're putting your leftism before your humanity. And on the right and in Christianity, if you can't just say places of worship of sincerely held religious beliefs, just anathema. oh, but Mormons aren't Christian. There's something wrong with you, dude. There's something wrong with you. And those ideas need to be absolutely challenged. I get that I'm on X and I'm 800 miles away. How's the response been locally in Michigan, Ben?
It's been great. Everyone that I've talked to in a lot of wards and branches have Facebook pages and groups and it's been somber, but at the same time, people are eager to help, as you know. Over the years, we've had different natural disasters, floods, things like that happen, and the response is immediate, it's overwhelmingly positive, and it's effective. When the Sanford Dam broke up in Midland, thousands of homes were affected. We spent a week helping clean up, and people from the minute they opened their eyes and until they went to bed were helping, covered in like these are who these people are. And same thing down in Detroit. We were down there for a week cleaning up. And I like to think again that this is everywhere. It might not be. I'd like to think it is, but the membership here in Michigan is extremely strong. I have to brag for a little bit. These are dedicated people. Most of them are driving 30, 40 minutes, sometimes an hour, because we're not littered with buildings all around the state. There's a dedication and a discipleship when that the membership has to have just to show up, let alone to go to activities and service projects and things. So this sort of innate drive to help not only build the kingdom, but certainly to respond to emergencies or things like that is pretty ingratiated into the membership here. But that aside, I've always felt like the church has a bit of a messaging problem, and that happens at the local level, meaning that I really think that these qualifiers happen in our Sunday school classes, in our elders quorum, and in our local meetings. Everything has to be qualified with yeah buts and this hippie version of Christ that's just solely focused on the Sermon on the Mount instead of being able to just speak the truth, having these discussions. Everything has to be qualified, and we have to trim everything and bottleneck it. Oh, that's deep doctrine. Oh, that's off the table. Let's just focus on the love. It's like, well, I'm sorry, if we're talking about the love of Christ, we're also talking about the Old Testament. We're also talking about things that you don't want to discuss. I'm going a little off here, but the membership, if you ever wanted to come to Michigan and had an issue, I mean, you could have a flat tire just passing through and you could call a bishop. I guarantee you that tire would be changed. Might be a little long just because of the proximity, but 20, 30 minutes and that baby's changed.
Wow. And I got to give a big shout out to the membership in Michigan as well. People think of it some kind of just like basic, just, hey, it's a flyover state. They're all the same, but no, Michigan is amazing. They're doing some of the greatest work in like facilitation of Arabic conversion. Like, bro, it's going down in Detroit. Like people that have escaped or immigrated or been refugees from Middle Eastern violence or dogma or whatever are finding Jesus Christ because of congregations in Michigan that are just making it happen. And nowhere else, well, I shouldn't say nowhere else, but not in several hundred, if not thousands of miles in North America is anybody doing as much work out there. And it's not some butt white flyover state with just a bunch of cows and pastures, bro. Like, no, this is like every walk of life. There are people doing so many amazing things. My dad served in Michigan. In fact, there's been a couple of articles written in Seventh-day Adventist magazines about my dad because he served in, I was trying to look him up right now. I can't remember if it was 1980 or 1982, but it was when there was that crazy tornado that tore through Kalamazoo. Does that sound right, Ben?
Yeah.
Okay, so back in the late 70s or the early 80s, there was a tornado that ripped through Michigan, and that's extremely rare. Geologically, it just doesn't happen in that area. And it destroyed the LDS church building. And the congregants of our church were homeless. And they tried to go to the Jewish synagogue, but they had like a charge them policy and it was too much. It wasn't in the budget. They tried going to like the Catholic church, but there were scheduling issues. They tried going to the high school, but then the high school needed a bunch of like funding, insurance, XYZ, whatever it was. There was just red tape everywhere. And the Seventh-day Adventists actually said, hey, we don't go to church on Sunday. Like, come and use it. And our church apparently even offered to pay whatever cleaning fee. And they said, no, if you guys clean up, we're just fine. And that's how the church survived there for like 11 or 12 months. So for a lot of people that were nervous about letting Muslims come into our church, like what was that, 6 weeks ago? You know, there's your answer right there. There's your answer right there. You let people worship sincerely held religious beliefs as much as you can, because that's what we do as in the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints. We allow people to worship how, where, and what we may, and we facilitate that process. It's an absolutely beautiful thing. And members of Michigan are freaking dedicated. They're great at interfaith. And you're right, they drive for freaking ever to go to church, bro. Like, how far are you from your church building? You're probably pretty close.
No, I'm 30 minutes away.
Wow, dude. We are spoiled in the West, man. We are spoiled in the West. And you probably have less of a commute than most people in your ward, right?
Now, when I went to Carroll, which is the small branch, 35 minutes the other way, because I'm like right on the line, there were some people that would drive 45 minutes an hour. And in if it's located in a larger city, you have plenty of people that have a short commute. But yeah, the lines are drawn out so long, though, again, because you don't have all these different branches and wards there. So yeah, there's a ton of outlying people that drive quite a bit to get there. And you got to think about who exactly is here. You got to think of the economic modalities over the decades. You're dealing with people who have largely been in auto. And if you know any history of really the United States, let alone Michigan, but it went down for places like Saginaw, especially Flint and Detroit. You're dealing with people who have pretty much, since those industries, I don't want to say took a dump, but you know what happened. Abject poverty. The hardship here in Michigan is astronomical for so many people. These are down and dirty, gritty people. I'm always going to stand by my Michiganders. We don't see eye to eye on a lot of things. It's a swing state politically, yada, yada, but they have a heart here and they have a drive. And you see that not only in Christians, but you see it in normal, everyday people. The people that I work with, the people that I meet at city events or anything, these are good, hardworking people. They're going to step up to the plate every time.
What's it like being Oh, no. Okay. So yeah, no, first off, great. And I agree with you. Like, my experience with Michigander members of the church has been like absolutely wonderful. I just laud everything you guys are doing. What, yeah, this is kind of a hard question to ask, but it's like, when I went through the 94 earthquake, I remember I was just a kid, but I remember that within 4 hours, because of the home teaching program and those 2 or 3 families that you're assigned to. And then, I remember getting on my bike with my dad because the phones didn't work, and then just checking in on our 3 or 4 families, and then via ham radio reporting to another guy that had a ham radio license. They're like, okay, the Wilsons are okay. The Rodriguez family is okay. Oh, I can't remember the Armenian family. The Consulians are okay, and so on and so forth. Are you aware? Have we been able to do a counting of our own people there after this in the ward that's even relatively accurate?
If there has been, which I'm sure there has, that's not been shared, but I know, yeah. To answer your question point blank, yeah, when I spoke to my family member, that's exactly what was occurring, and that was at about 11:30. So, from what I'm timestamp wise, I'm seeing that it occurred right around 10:45. So within 45 minutes, there was already, I would say, largely the event was sort of starting to come to a close. The fire was being put out. Which I don't think it was 100% put out until a little after noon, but they're already starting to take into account. And so that's why you didn't want to 100% verify, but that's when I said that they have a little bit of an idea of who may still be in the building. That's really where that comes from. It's both the efforts from local law enforcement and federal, but also from the membership themselves, sort of trying to take a little bit of an intended.
Okay.
Well, and I think that's another beautiful thing about our religion is the ministering program, where we have like a built-in like pipeline or like supply chain. Like, we know who we're supposed to be stewards over in ministering, and then we're able, to get a really fast, accurate count. I think I never thought it would be like an active shooter situation. But even in this horrific situation, like, how grateful are we that we have that program already set up?
Yeah, we're conditioned
where people know what to do and who to check in on.
Yeah, we've conditioned ourselves for success.
Yeah.
In crisis, which I think is well. Now, we got to let you go. I want to be respectful of your time because I'm sure that you have a bunch of duties to attend to really quickly. I'm just going to read a couple of super chats here. It's Sunday, so we don't ask for any super chats. However, some people have generously violated the Sabbath and given us money. No, I'm just kidding. We're not gonna douse these people.
Oh no.
Yeah, because where they are, it's probably Monday already. We're a worldwide podcast, right? Anyway, Ben here says, I've seen a lot of solidarity with us from everywhere. Right now, we should take all the support with grace rather than correcting them about who we are. I think that's a good take. I think that's a very good take. I know that oftentimes you don't want to become one of those guys where when you've been hammered for so long, everything looks like a nail. And I was pleasantly surprised that like by hour 4, anybody that was trying to not call us Christians in hour 3 seemed to be somewhat, not resoundingly, but corrected by enough people that I was like, okay, faith in humanity restored. So Ben here, I think that's actually a good take that I will indeed myself take to heart as well. Then MC2022 says, prayer for everyone. I have family close by. Thoughts on changing gun policy? I hope so. Jesus, family proclamation, and editorial call men to protect, want to follow church policy, but also feel a divine calling to protect my family. Okay, so there's some grammar errors there that I don't quite understand, but I think the spirit of the super chat is there, that as men, we want to be able to make sure that everybody feels safe when they go to church. And that means that we might have to reevaluate some security protocols in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints that personally I feel are long overdue. You have any thoughts on this before I continue to the next super chat, Ben?
I mean, one thing I will say, I wrote a Substack article on this because there was a lot of discussion right after Charlie was assassinated about really, no one put their finger on it. I hope I did, which is righteous anger versus unrighteous anger. And I threw that up on X right after that space was concluded because I didn't really feel like it was fleshed out well enough. I know there's going to be a lot of people angry, but there's also going to be a lot of people that are too passive. And we know that there's going to be them that say all is well in Zion. I think all is not well. And I'm never going to be that person. And it's not just because I want to be an alarmist. I'm certainly not a pacifist by any means, but something does need to be done. And I really feel we need to go on the offensive when it comes to this. And is that, like you stated, evaluating our security policies? What exactly does that look like? I don't know, but we need to do something in my estimation. And I don't feel that it's unrighteous to be angry at this and to want something to change. And I have a litany of standard works examples, scholarly examples that really don't. I mean, I'll share that article with you that really goes through everything. But if you're angry about this, it is okay to be angry. Just don't let it turn into sinful thoughts or actions.
I totally agree with you, Ben. Totally agree.
I totally agree. Dude, I 110. This has been a resounding refrain from this channel for a very, very, very long time. And I love how you said there's a difference between unrighteous and righteous indignation, and you don't want this to turn into unrighteous indignation, but something needs to change. And there are scriptural, moral, philosophical reasons for that change. And I'm completely all for it. I mean, I got to tell you, man, I think we need to institute that change fast, because if not, a harsher, if you can't do the reasonable thing, the unreasonable thing starts looking appealing to enough people that they might just vote for it, or they might just be convinced by somebody who suggests it. Okay. Perfect example here. I'm not saying that this is this person's meaning, but next super chat says, bring back the Nauvoo Legion. Every church should have security plans where women and children are the most secured. Stop being sheep when wolves are prowling. Now, okay, not the Nauvoo Legion day nights. They were clandestine. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so not day nights, right? But like, I definitely think it would not be a bad idea, and I've said this for years, as a stopgap, and we can game theory how the church protects itself in a different episode, but the truncated version is I don't see why we don't have our own private security firm where it's somebody's calling. You're going to go, 5 guys in the ward. You guys are going to go get your guard card from your state. You guys are going to get trained in a firearm correctly, and you are going to receive all the training and all the qualification and all of the everything that you need, so that every ward has somebody at any given time, when somebody is there, who can engage with this blight of active shooters that exists in the world, because just outlying guns isn't working, or whatever it is. Every bishop of Berna, I've said forever. You know what I'm saying? I'd have one of those strapped to every single corner of the chapel if I had to. But just this idea of thinking it won't happen to you, that's gone. That's done. No longer an option. And I love that people like you are stepping up and saying, okay, like, we no more head in the sand, no more there's scriptural reasons, there's philosophical reasons, standard works reasons. I only, as they say in Argentina, pray that this goes from your lips to God's ears, because for years I've been talking about this. So anyway, anything else you want to say that we haven't covered before we end this stream here, my man?
No, I would just echo those same sentiments that you just said. We are the leaders here, truthfully, of the world, religiously, and we know that the day is going to come soon, socially and politically. We have really the best among us, and we have that because of modern day revelation, because of the restored gospel. We have the tools. This is not an indictment of these generations past. They had their duties. Every generation has to know its own duties and suffering. I understand that. The generations that are in charge now, and I tell this to missionaries all the time, when you sit in ward council, when you sit in branch council, when you grit your teeth and you say, let's do something, let's talk about something of substance, take that home with you. Do not accept these lukewarm people that are in these callings. Magnification doesn't mean pacification. Please go back and turn this into action. It's the same thing with this. We can talk about it all we want, but we are the leaders, truthfully, of the Christian world. We have the revelation, and I'm confident the Lord will do something, but we are still under condemnation out of Section 84. We just imagine if we had the brass plates. I also wrote this big thing, and I did a space on it with unrevealed scripture. We would be taken out of condemnation as a church and as a covenant people if we would take seriously what's been revealed already. This is a chance for us to do this. There's no more fence sitting. Neil A. Maxwell spoke about this in the 80s about lukewarm membership. We need to up our consecration. We need to up our discipleship. We need to magnify our callings, and this goes way beyond the church. People for too long have been coming to church unprepared. For too long, they've said, well, we get another hour to just crap around at home instead of actually using that other hour. I missed the third hour personally, but that's a whole nother topic.
Yeah.
We have an opportunity here, as you suggested. It felt different the day you woke up when Charlie Kirk died. It felt different this morning when we found out President Russell M. Nelson had passed. It feels different now, and we're going to keep having these things happen, and the membership, in my estimation, needs to step up in a major way. There's no more fence sitting. There's no more coasting. That time is over.
Wow. Well said, my man. Well said. How can people follow you if they want to hear more of what you have to say? I heard you mention a Substack. I know that you're on X. How can people follow you, man?
I'm on Instagram, but X is really the place that I'm engaging with most. I'm on Spaces a lot, talking about things, but you retweeted me, so please follow me if you want. I'd love to have more discussions about all things gospel related. So.
Okay, awesome. And I was pleased that actually you watched our show. You'd stumble upon our show right before that. Before you go, I gotta know, what's the history of you tuning into Ward Radio? How did that happen? I was pleasantly surprised when I actually DM'd you that you actually even knew who you were. It was humbling. It was beautiful. How'd you find us?
It's all through X. Like I was saying earlier, I really didn't know, growing up so isolated, I really didn't know there was like-minded people. Now I could get that through people like Skousen and Nibley and people that are really interested and I mean, those are scholars, but just these questions that a lot of membership just discard or disregard. So as I started exploring, I know a lot of people say LDSX or LDX on X, and that's really where I discovered some podcasts and some shows. Your show is brought up quite frequently in LDS circles, so that's kind of how I figured out who
for
you guys
better
were.
or for worse. I'm afraid to ask,
Yeah.
is it brought up positively or negatively?
No, it's always brought up positively.
See, I
And the
told
few
you.
episodes that I've listened to, I was very pleasantly surprised. And me and one of my close friends go to the temple the last Friday of every month. And our nearest temple is about an hour and a half away, and we stop for bagels. So it's about a 2-hour drive, and we have a lot of time to talk. And we've listened to episodes of yours or discussed some of the topics covered before. So what you're doing is certainly the Lord's work. Keep up, but make sure people know that no more coasting, man. Your lukewarm membership is done.
Dude, I love that. No more coasting. Your lukewarm membership is done. With that said, I just got to give a couple of thank yous here. We've had a lot of people be very, very generous with our Amazon wish list. Jokingly, I mentioned that my Apple AirPods had bailed, and that's actually what I use with Falter Media to actually approve all of our pre-recorded episodes and a lot of the edits while I'm at work, while I'm traveling, so on and so forth. And sure enough, we actually got a brand new pair of AirPod Pros here off our Amazon wish list. Thank you very much. Big shout out to M. Smith, who wrote the following limerick: to hear every take that you drop without tangled cords that flop. These pods bring you sound that's crisp and profound, from doctrine to jokes that won't stop. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, M. Smith. Also, there's another one here. Hold on. I don't want to actually turn off my own microphone. I just touched my own mic thing. That was pretty funny. Also, thank you very much, Brian M., who was able to get us the second DJI transmitter that we needed for our DJI Osmo 3 that got some water damage or something. It was kind of crazy. And then for the anonymous person that gave us the SC22 cords, thank you very much. We make a lot of our content out and about with these gifts of yours. They help keep everything going. We're very, very grateful for your generosity. If you guys want to support the channel, and the Sabbath is over, please consider a generous contribution on Zelle, or purchase a hat, the famous War in Heaven veteran hats or shirts in the Ward Radio merch store. We're available on all of those platforms. And as we say in every episode, it's been real and it's been fun, and it's been real fun for this and more. Please make sure that you guys check us out at wardradio.com. Ben, stay on the line just for 30 seconds after this outro, and we're going to talk. See you guys in the next episode.
I built a rocket in my basement. I'm gonna fly it to the moon. This supersonic is amazing.